We are winning the clean food war in a huge way, thanks to your help. And when I say we, I mean you and us, and all of us who are advocates of clean food. Taiwan has just announced, well, actually, the law was passed a year ago, but it's now being implemented, that GMOs are banned from school lunches all across the country. Not only that, the country is requiring mandatory GMO labeling on any foods that contain 3% or more GMOs. It's also requiring GMO labeling at restaurants and cafes and street vendors, which means if you go to Taiwan, all the street carts that are selling soy milk and tofu and miso and all those different soy-derived products, they have to label GMOs. Now, isn't this interesting? Fines for violating this have been set at NT $50 million. That's, let's see, it's about 32 to 1. So what does that come out to? It's still a big fine, even in U.S. dollars, right? It's like $1.5 million or something U.S., which is a pretty big deal. So Taiwan is now ahead of the United States on food safety and food transparency. And isn't this incredible that the U.S. increasingly now resembles the food safety system of a third world nation? Because everywhere else all around the world, in the EU, for example, they're banning additives and they ban herbicides and pesticides that are still legal in the United States. In the U.S., the FDA delays anything that would actually make food safer. They refuse to ban toxic additives until the very last minute. They refuse to ban pesticides and herbicides that are deadly cancer-causing chemicals, and they allow GMOs to be sold secretly, covertly, in foods that are not labeled. Yet the rest of the world is now leaving the U.S. in the dust on this issue. So you're listening to the Health Ranger Report. My name is Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, and you can hear all my podcasts at healthrangerreport.com or my show on our online radio network, talknetwork.com. That's talknetwork.com. And as you probably know, I've been one of the most active, effective, and outspoken clean food advocates in the world, along with others like Food Babe and Dr. Oz even, and Jeffrey Smith and Ronnie Cummins at the Organic Consumers Association, and many, many others out there. I don't mean to leave anybody out, but there are lots of us who have been fighting this battle for many years for clean food. And many millions, tens of millions of people like you who have been supporting us in this battle and working hard for clean food in your own way and in your own states like California. And yet, what has happened is that the corrupt criminal biotech industry, which is literally run by criminal felons, and just the most insanely corrupt, despicable people imaginable, people who beat their wives, for example, as we've exposed, are running the GMO propaganda. People with criminal felony records. That's like part of the group who attacked Dr. Oz. These people are so despicable that if I were to schedule, let's say, a public speaking event against GMOs, they would call in a bomb threat, which they have done many, many times before against other speakers. These people in the biotech industry are such scumbags and such violent, horrible, despicable individuals. They actively coordinate death threats, intimidation campaigns, online defamation and slander campaigns against people like myself and Food Babe and many others. And it's interesting because for many years we've gone after companies like McDonald's or Coca-Cola, but yet McDonald's and Coca-Cola, they act like business professionals. They'll argue their side and they'll try to bribe bloggers to say Coca-Cola is part of a healthy meal and things like that. But they don't hire like defamation writers and death threat people and felons and wife beaters. Coca-Cola would never do that. Coca-Cola is going to run, they're a professional business organization that actually has, believe it or not, they actually have their boundaries of ethics. They are not going to resort to mafia tactics, okay? So, say what you want about Coca-Cola. I don't like their product, obviously, but they're not the mafia. And same thing with McDonald's. I don't like their product. I don't like their marketing to kids, but they're not the mafia. They don't resort to this kind of thing. The biotech industry is the mafia. They are the corporate fascist mafia of our world, and they are trying to dominate the global seed supply and the global food supply. And what's really horrifying is that they are using the power of the United States government and international trade agreements like the TPP to shove their toxic GMO foods down the throats of other people all around the world in countries like Taiwan. That's how these trade agreements work. Didn't you know? TPP and other international trade agreements. Monsanto and the biotech companies are the ones that are writing all of the seed and food provisions of these trade agreements and then paying off politicians and bureaucrats, through financial influence, campaign contributions, and so on, to push these things to make it a violation of international law for countries to say no to GMOs. In other words, you can't ban the import of GMOs once you sign on to these international trade agreements. Otherwise, you get sanctioned by the international community. So if you're a country like Taiwan and you want to protect your citizens from the toxic effects of GMOs and glyphosate and toxic food imperialism from the United States, you have to go to extraordinary lengths to pass local laws that require GMO labeling, because you can't ban the import of GMOs due to the trade agreements. How astonishing is that? So Taiwan doesn't want to poison its children. Imagine that. Wow, there's a country that doesn't want to poison its children with genetically modified foods? Yeah, there is. And by the way, I love Taiwan. I used to live there. And I speak conversational Mandarin Chinese. I do not speak Taiwanese, which is a different dialect. But I speak Mandarin Chinese. Unfortunately, I'm not able to read it. That's a whole different skill set. You can't just sound it out. It's there's no alphabet. There's just words that are pictures. So I love Taiwan as a country. Taiwan has an attitude of freedom and independence. Taiwan is the free market of Asia. Don't compare Taiwan to China. And Taiwan is not a territory of China, even though China continues to claim it is. China is a corrupt, communist, evil regime that commits organ harvesting against meditation, Falun Gong members. China is big government gone way bad. Taiwan has a very healthy political process. Taiwan, in fact, is coming up on elections right now for the new president, and their independence party called the DPP is rising very rapidly, and they've got some amazing people. It looks like the DPP is going to win. They're going to have a female president who's a very strong woman, educated in the United States. They've got the mayor of Taipei. I think his name is Ma, isn't it? Like Ma Xianxiang. I'm pretty sure it's Ma. Who's outspoken. He's kind of like me. He's kind of like the Taiwan version of me. He just tells the truth, and people love him over there. And so he's kicking butt. Taiwan is rising, and they have a very healthy political process, online chat rooms, televised debates. In fact, Taiwan's debates are far more intelligent than anything I've seen in the United States. CNN debates, it's like an idiot fest of questions from dumbed down CNN commentators. It's just theater for morons. Whereas if you turn on the Taiwan debates, they ask intelligent questions, and they give more than 30 seconds for a reply. They give the candidates 3 or 4 minutes to give an intelligent, informed answer. Anyway, because Taiwan has this healthy political process, they're able to actually get some things done that protect their people from toxic foods. And that's what we're seeing now. So GMO labels are now required to be on foods that contain 3% or more GMOs. They've even limited the use of food additives in the country to just 799 compounds that are approved by the Taiwan FDA. Whereas in the United States, food companies can use tens of thousands of toxic cancer-causing chemicals in their foods, totally allowed by the FDA, even though we know that many of those chemicals cause cancer. By the way, I'm going to continue this. This is going to be a multi-part podcast, but let me insert this. My book is coming out later this year. It's a book on the laboratory testing of food contamination and the history of toxic chemicals that are still allowed in the foods by the FDA versus how they've been banned in the EU and other countries around the world. So watch for my book to come out. It's going to be, it's late. I thought it was going to be done, 2 years ago or 1 year ago, but it's coming out this year. And this book talks about this whole subject, how the FDA is poisoning America, poisoning our children, and the corporate fascist government cartel of agriculture and processed food is poisoning our children, while other countries around the world are banning GMOs. Russia banned GMO agriculture. Countries all over Eastern Europe are banning GMOs, like Ukraine. It's all being very hotly debated there. GMOs are rejected from being imported into many countries around the world, including many countries in Asia. So the world is rejecting agricultural imperialism, and they're rejecting GMOs while the U.S. continues to poison its own children so that it can appease the profits of the corporate monsters in the biotech industry. So you're listening to the Health Ranger Report. This is part 1 of this discussion. If you are missing the other parts, just go to healthrangerreport.com. I'll continue in part 2. This is Mike Adams.